Hey guys, Brickie here. Today we are interviewing Vayu, a future prog artist based out of California. It was a really awesome interview. It really meant a lot to me personally, as someone who found his music very inspiring and very emotionally driven. I really hope you guys enjoy it, and as per usual, all of the links will be in the description. A link to Vayu socials as well as my Instagram if you want to recommend or are interested in an interview in the future. That would be great. I really hope you guys enjoy this one. Thank you. Right, we are going. First thing I wanted to ask is where did it's Vayu, right?
Yeah,
Okay, where did that come from?
honestly, I was just kind of like scrolling through Wikipedia,
Mm-hmm.
to think of a name because I just used to use my first name,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought I should use an artist name. So I was just kind of like Wikipedia and surfing pretty much, and I came across Vayu, and I think that's like the Hindu god of wind or
Yeah.
something.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just thought it sounded cool, and stuck with it.
Yeah, that's I don't think I've heard a lot of like interesting stories about how people come up with their name. Like I think Childish Gambino came up with his name from a Wu-Tang Clan uh generator.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so just surfing Wikipedia, that's pretty cool. What about your other aliases like Second Alias, Fantastic Daydream, Age of Gold, and Ballroom for Ghosts?
Um, well, I think the first one that came was actually Second Alias,
Mm-hmm.
and that one it's kind of confusing because that one I changed to Ballroom for Ghosts because I thought Second Alias was kind of clunky, but I kind of liked Second Alias, so I went back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And as for like Fantastic Daydream or I don't think I'm gonna use an Age of Gold. Like Fantastic Daydream, that's kind of just like for everything else that isn't really like Vayu or Second Alias, I just kind of release it under that. Like if it's using like some software I usually don't use or it's like different, it's just so I can put it out, but it's not like a main, release.
Sure.
If
Yeah,
that
that
makes
that makes
sense.
sense.
Yeah. Because like
Um,
with those albums, I made those using like Oxy on my
mhm.
phone. That's like a phone like a DAW and stuff. So like so sometimes when I'm away from my computer, I have some time. I just work on some songs on my phone, and
Mhm.
that's what those albums are.
Gotcha. That makes sense. All of your names usually have a pretty drastic sound change, so that makes sense to release them under different names.
Yeah.
Do you play any instruments or have any like prior background in music? I know you started relatively young, but
Well, I've been playing guitar since well, I started playing guitar in like fourth grade or so, and I
okay.
think in like fifth grade I picked up the bass guitar, and that's the instrument that I'm sticking with. Like I'm going to school for bass guitar right now, actually.
Oh.
So I consider myself a bassist. I've been in a few bands. I'm in one now.
Mhm.
And yeah, playing bass. So I definitely consider myself a bassist. I use a keyboard. I use a keyboard, but I wasn't trained with playing keys or anything like that.
Sure.
Yeah, so I mostly use it like for composing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I play bass guitar definitely.
Gotcha. And I feel like is that comes out a lot, especially in your Vayu music. There's a lot of bass lines in a lot of your songs. So, um, how did learning and playing those instruments affect your music creation process?
Um, well, it kind of just sort of, I mean, I guess like with bass, in general, it sort of helped me think outside the box.
Hmm.
When that kind when where that's concerned, and I think in like progressive rock music in particular, like progressive rock music, jazz fusion, genres like that. Like the bass guitar has like a very interesting role that it's like a lot more melodic in those genres than some other genres where it's just sort of like holding down the root notes and stuff like that.
Right.
So I definitely approach songs in kind of like a different sort of way because I mean because I would think that in other genres it's sort of like the bass line kind of comes later. It's just like a song needs a bass line to hold the song down, so let's just put in like a simple bass line. But usually with a lot of my songs I write around kind of like a more complex bass line or rhythm section, and I
Hmm.
think that kind of helps me just come up with ideas and keep songs going without them getting too repetitive, even if they're kind of longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of shapes your sound because you have a very unique style that you go with, and I think playing it around the bass line is very beneficial to kind of creating um your own unique style.
Yeah, thanks.
Um, and you kind of went into it with that question. What are some of your favorite genres to listen to, and some of the artists within those genres?
Well, like I was saying, I really like I'm really into a lot of music from the 70s for whatever reason. I just think um maybe it's because I'm a bassist, so like I can kind of like appreciate, some of the work that goes into, a lot of the music from the
Oh, I think you cut out. Uh oh. Can you hear me? Hello.
Turn Forever, whether we
Oh, gosh.
Hello?
I think I can hear you.
Okay, cool, cool.
I don't know what
Uh
happened there. Everything just cut out. That might have been
yeah,
on
that was
me.
weird. Did it cut out again?
No, I think we're
Oh,
good now.
okay, cool, cool. So where did it cut out? Let me
Uh,
just restart. You were
yeah,
just
that's
asking
fine.
about uh yeah, so I just I like a lot of music from the 70s, I
Hmm.
like Weather Report, and Jacko and Return to Forever and I also really like progressive rock music. Like I think my favorite progressive rock band is probably Yes. And I think that probably shows a lot. Like, I think the thing that I think that I hear the most of, like, when people hear my stuff is, like, it sounds like Yes. So, it probably comes through it probably comes through especially in the bass because, I really model, like, the bass sound and playing after, Chris Squire and what he does, and, a lot of the keyboards I use are stuff that's kinda, like, more, you know, more like genre specific to that time period, like
Sure.
like to use like the Moog synthesizer and like Mellotrons and stuff like that and uh you know like the B3 organ, just stuff from that time period, and I think that just kind of helps it. But also I like I like throwing in like modern stuff too, and like even like some video game sounds to kind of broaden the sound a bit.
Sure.
So it doesn't sound too too samey to stuff that came before.
Yeah, and I think you do a really good job. I over the last I since Monday, I listened to your whole catalog front to back, all your aliases, everything, and like there's definitely some aspects of your music that carry through each of your albums, but they all have their really distinct sounds. I think you do a really good job of making sure that every song and every album is cohesive together but different from the rest of them.
Oh, thanks.
Um
Yeah, like
how
I'm pretty
Yeah, go ahead.
or sorry,
No,
yeah,
you're
you
good.
know, I'm pretty yeah, I can be pretty picky about, so and I think that kind of helps that, a lot of my songs are a bit longer because like if I made really short songs,
Hmm.
it'd be kind of hard to, you know, like if I just picked like the best 5 songs and they're all short songs, that wouldn't be enough to fill an album. But
Yeah.
because some of my songs are longer, I can just pick like 4 songs out of them, and they're like my best ones, and I can fill an album. And I can feel pretty happy with that.
Yeah, for sure. How did you get into progressive rock, and what influences did you take from the genre? I You kind of
Um,
answered that with like the bass and the synthesizers and the sounds, but was there anything else that stood
uh,
out?
yeah, sure. I really like the structure of them. Like
Hmm.
I think that it allows it kind of it just allows you to be really creative. It's kind of like just having a long song is kind of just having like a big canvas. So if you want to like do something elaborate, you have the space to like if you really like how like I don't know, like a section sounds, or like a certain synthesizer solo sounds, you can just kind of extend it. You can
Right.
put in different keys and keep it going. And that's kind of like what I like about being able to make longer songs, and you can just kind of um you can extend stuff that you really really like. And I used to be I think I'm being a little more thoughtful about it now,
Hmm.
because think looking back at some of my older songs, sometimes I think sometimes it could be a little bit too long. Maybe some of my like early ones, but even still, like I think that just having the freedom to lengthen out sections and stuff like that, I appreciate that out of the genre. And I like how I don't know. I just like how emotional and interesting things can get when you have the time to sort of lay something out. You know.
Sure. Yeah, and I think emotions play a huge part in both the like actual creation as well as the listening and enjoyment of music. And if that's something you can express through um, the progressive rock and the longer songs that you make, that's really cool, and I'm sure that's very fulfilling for you as well.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, it is really fulfilling, honestly. Because I like making all music, but definitely like with those, with my Vayu stuff, I think that's the most fulfilling, type of music I make. Like I really like making, my second Alias stuff, of course, but yeah, but
Mhm.
uh, I don't know. I don't think anything quite compares to, you know, how I feel about some of my Vayu albums, I think.
Right, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. I have a whole section kind of dedicated to what you like, but kind of going off the inverse of that previous question, is there anything in the progressive rock genre that you don't like? Are there aspects of it that you just kind of don't mesh with at all?
Huh. Uh, Honestly, I feel like just in general, it's I don't dislike a lot of music in general.
Hmm.
But especially with progressive rock, because that's like my favorite genre. Like, I mean, there's of course there's albums I like more than other albums,
For sure.
but I'm trying to think.
Alternatively, is there anything in that genre that you aren't? how do I want to phrase this? Is there anything in that genre that you want to make sure that you don't implement into your music, that you don't think will attach itself to your sound?
Okay, well that's kind of interesting because there's it's kind of funny because there is like aspects that like I think like other people probably might not like because a lot of progressive rock can be it can be kind of pompous,
Sure.
and but it kind of just feels like in my case it's like a necessary sort of evil, it's kind of like, well, it's not going to be for everyone, like it's and and that's just something I gotta kind of accept, because I respect other artists that can make music that can kind of appeal to a lot of people
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I recognize that might not be one of my strengths, and that I think that could be a downside. But just kind of like for my own fulfillment and stuff like that, like I don't really mind, you know, having a little bit of pompousness in my music or whatever, but definitely in promoting it and stuff like that, it
Hmm.
can come in the way of it. So I can I'm trying to strike like a balance a bit, like going forward, I'm trying to make sure, if the next album I put out, I'm trying to make sure, I have some songs that are kind of more accessible, but also some songs that, are more experimental. So,
Hmm.
more people can have things to, latch onto. So, it's not necessarily like I don't like it about progressive rock, but it's just something that I gotta make sure I keep in mind that other people might not like about it,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I personally think that's a really strong step in the right direction. There's a lot of people that make a lot of music that don't understand that some people won't like it. So you already like having acknowledged that fact is I feel like that's going to push you further because you're aware of it and are making strides towards both appealing and making the music that you like.
Yeah.
Um how do you feel about remixes and remakes of albums? You recently, in the last, what was it, like month ago, put out the third edition of Fashion. Um, what are your just overall thoughts on remakes and remixes?
I like them. You know what I'm saying? Like I get pretty excited because once in a while there'll be like a new remastered edition of like an album that I've listened to. Like let me think of like the most recent one. Like there's been like new masterings of a few Gentle Giant albums that
Hmm.
have come out. I think Steve Wilson did the remixes, and there's been some new Yes ones that have had some new 2024, 2023 remasters, and I think that it's nice to listen to it because sometimes I can notice like instruments that have been like buried in the mix that because of the new remastered it, you can hear it and
Right.
it's like, oh, that's what that person was doing, or oh, I didn't even notice that about this sound. And so, I think, I'm not against um, music, evolving and stuff like that.
Sure.
And making tweaks and stuff like that. I don't think it's like the hugest thing in the universe. Like I don't think like my enjoyment is like way different. Like if like with a new mix compared to the old mix, I think like the main thing is just the performances and the song itself rather than the mix. Like I don't consider myself like an amazing mixer or anything like that. So
Sure.
maybe that's just my bias. But but yeah, I just kind of like that sort of thing. And yeah.
Do you perhaps think that that is something that more people should be looking into, whether it doing it for the purpose of making a better album or to perhaps hone their skills in mastering and producing?
Um Honestly, I think that um I think you would get like an equal amount of kind of. I mean, I guess it's good to revisit stuff, but it's
Mhm.
also good to kind of like push forward and try new things.
Sure.
So I would just think it's good to keep an open mind about it, you know, like an open mind about like going and revisiting old stuff, but also, keeping an open mind about making new things.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Um, in your opinion, what is the purpose of music?
The purpose of hmm.
However you want to interpret that. I left it purposely open, so
Yeah. Uh, I mean, I think uh I don't know. I think people uh just like humans in general, they just people like to share things. People like to share how they feel
mhm,
and share experiences with people. And I think music just does that in a way like it's kind of like a social thing. Like, everyone can listen to music and interpret it together and stuff like that. So that, there's that aspect of it. And also, for like the artist, they can express themselves in a way that they would want to, and that's also kind of like a human sort of want. So I think it's just kind of like, so it's like a few things. I think
mhm.
I think it's humans in general, like we want to share how we feel, and we want to share, good times. If we feel bad, sometimes we want to share how bad we feel, or if we're angry, sometimes we want to share how angry we feel, or sometimes we just want to feel cool, we want to just share that. And I think that's kind of just a way uh music can be used. It's kind of like a way of communication in a way.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's I mean, there's probably, I mean, there's a lot of ways I can look at that, but that's kind of how I look at it. It's kind of just like it's just a way to sort of, it's just like, it's kind of like talking, like it's communication, but it's in a different way. It's kind of like how different sorts of arts are like different types of communication. Like
Yeah, it's
uh you know
self-expression.
yeah, like TV can be in that way, like plays, movies, books, anything, and just music is just a type of that. And I think it's just kind of very intrinsic to us, because it has to do with talking, it has to do with listening, it has to do with moving. So I think it's just like a very human way of expression.
Yeah, one wonderfully put. I would answer it almost word for word. Although you definitely went into more detail than I would have. That perfect. Um, what was the catalyst for you to take music creation seriously?
Um, Take it seriously.
I assume you take it
I just think
seriously.
that. Yeah, yeah, I do, but I don't think it was like kind of like, it was like one day I wasn't taking it seriously, and then I just kind of just locked in and then just started taking it seriously. I think it
Sure.
was just kind of like a gradual sort of thing.
Mhm.
Like I was kind of, at first, I think the first thing I was doing is I was just making music like off like like an iPad or something, and just putting it up as like little signals, like singles on SoundCloud.
Sure.
And then eventually I put those into albums. And then eventually when I got my computer, I and that was my first Vayu album. That was the first album I made like on a computer. Um because I figured that was more, that was like a step up, so I felt a little bit more serious about it. And
Right.
it's just kind of like a gradual sort of, getting more and more serious about it. And I think, now I'm, more serious about music in general, because I'm in school for music now. I
Mhm.
wasn't in school for music before. and I'm just I'm working with more people. I'm just trying to you know handle things more professional. So it's kind of just like a gradual sort of process, but I think it's just like I I just know like I've put in work in it, so I should just keep putting in work on it. That's just kind of how I view it, really.
I got you. That makes sense. I feel like that's a, a pretty common reason. Most people just kind of doodle around and then they're like, "Oh, I like this," and then just keep gradually doing it. And I I feel like that's a pretty accurate way to, you know, kind of get to the point that you're at.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of moving to a different section. I wanted to ask you some questions about the label that you own, Wave Racers Collective, um, which started in 2018, right?
Yeah.
Which is that's 6 years ago. That's crazy. I bet that feels crazy to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've worked with a pretty sizable amount of artists in those last 6 years. Has there been anybody that you've worked with that has had significant influence on you and your music, or like stood out as a rising star?
Um. Well, those are kind of well, to answer your first question. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I'm too. I would say definitely like a lot of the artists that I put on to Wave Racers, they definitely inspire my music in some ways. Definitely like with the second alias,
Sure.
uh, stuff like that. I think that that was the case. I think like the Vayu stuff that was kind of like first, so that was kind of sort of set in stone a lot of the stuff that I did with that. But
Hmm.
with second alias and stuff like that, I think that came like after my label opened. So I think that that kind of influenced you know branching out to different things.
Right.
So I'd say, but so yeah, I'd say yeah, definitely. There's been some of that kind of thing. And in terms of rising stars, I mean, it's kind of it's kind of difficult to sort of quantify because of course, and I'm cognizant of this. Like vaporwave, it's a niche genre pretty
Yeah.
much.
Absolutely.
So someone being big in vaporwave, it's not like it doesn't translate to being like big like everywhere. Like if you're big in like
Right.
trap music, like you're a big star. But if you're big in vaporwave, you're big in a kind of a niche genre. But there's definitely been artists that I've worked with that have gone on to become bigger like with time, and it wasn't all just me or anything like that, but
For sure.
I think that's happened. Like I'm trying to think, some artists that like they were smaller, but I've seen they've it seemed like they've been doing a bit better. I'm just looking through real quick. Like I think Pooter Poley maybe it
Hmm.
seems like he's doing pretty well. But I just feel like people artists in the scene, they release from a lot of different labels and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's kind of because it's just not feasible really unless you're like huge to like actually like have any like exclusivity with things like this
Sure.
because obviously with vaporwave, I mean a lot of it technically, it's copyright material. So
Yeah.
once you get to a certain size, it kind of gets, and with stuff like exclusivity deals and stuff like that, that gets into like legality. So it just kind of it gets kind of messy. So
Hmm.
you know it's not really like there's one artist that's like stuck with me that's like grown because they like I have exclusivity, but there's been some artists that have released from me quite a bit and that are happy to release their newest projects with me and stuff like that. But
Sure.
I don't think that I've like anyone's like blown up or anything like that. But it's just I kind of just I hope it's just kind of a good you know thing to do for someone's career. Like
Yeah,
just a little some extra exposure, stuff like that.
for sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do the majority of the releases come from people asking you if they can release something, or vice versa, you asking them?
It's like half and half, I think.
Okay. Um,
Yeah, I think with the digital releases, it's more often people uh like people sending their stuff, but for
mhm.
physical releases, it's more often me asking artists.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
How has owning wave racers affected your life?
Uh, um, I mean, it's a good amount of work, honestly.
I can imagine.
And yeah, and sometimes it's been like too much. Like I've bit off like way more than I can chew, during some portions of it, definitely.
Sure.
Um, so I mean, definitely it's been stressful, but it's also been, pretty fulfilling, and it's been, a good way to kind of network as well. So I think, it has had positive effects, and I haven't gotten rich off of it or anything, but I've got a good amount of money from running it over the years,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and also and I don't usually appreciate in the moment, right? Because like if I screw up with something, like it feels terrible,
Sure.
because I've I've definitely made mistakes, and there's been things that have gone wrong and stuff like that, and of course, like I said, like in the moment, it might feel really shitty and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
afterwards, you learn from it and stuff like that, and I can just see myself becoming more adept at doing this. So before, when something would feel like a lot more daunting, now it doesn't really feel like too big a deal, because I feel like I just sort of have it down, which is good. And I think that's just kind of fulfilling, and I think that that can be it could those skills and stuff like that can be applied to other things. Like I'm not like banking on Wave Racers Collective to be like it's like be like platinum record, or like a huge
Yeah,
like Sony
for
records or
sure,
anything
for
like
sure.
that. But it would be nice if can continue doing all right for me, and but definitely I can see how the skills could translate to something else that could become bigger. So I think that it's been good overall, and it's been good to kind of be busy with things too.
Hmm.
That it kind of helped me over, because I really because I wasn't doing because I opened the label technically in 2018.
Right.
Like in 2018 I released I'm trying to think of the timeline actually, because I think I opened the Discord server. The Discord server was actually first. Like that was the first Wave Versus Collective anything. It
Hmm.
was just a Discord server. And then, there's some artists that came on from, some other servers. And then that's when the first, collab album came out. I think that was like September 2018.
Okay.
And then, we did another one in like January 2019, and I think the spring of that year or something, we just started doing digital releases. But it wasn't until like quarantine that I started doing like physical releases, because I just had like I had a lot of time on my hands because it was quarantine.
Yeah.
So so definitely that was kind of nice to have something to do during that time. But definitely going back into things after quarantine, but still having that workload, that definitely did uh, you know, that was rough because, I had a lot of work, but also, I had to keep up with what I was doing before.
Right.
So, it was pretty stressful, but, now I think I'm in a pretty comfortable state. I still feel like I may be doing it, maybe a little too much, with it, but I think I'm pretty much handling it. I think I'm pretty much caught up on orders and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and yeah. So it's had an impact on my life, and there's been ups and downs and stuff like that. But I'm overall I'm happy. I'm happy I've been doing it.
That's awesome to hear. We love to hear that. And considering it's been going on for like pretty consistently for the last 5, 6 years, it seems like you're gonna continue on with that. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. Um, what would be some advice that current you would tell past you? Um, whenever here, let me rephrase that. What would be some
Uh,
advice present you would tell your past self when taking on the challenge of owning the label?
just uh, honestly, I mean, I can still use this advice. I mean, I'm better now, but I could still be better. But just always plan as ahead as you can. Just like do if you can do things early, just do it early. Because I just procrastinate quite
Mm-hmm.
a bit, so I save stuff for the last minute. Like and that's that's bit me in the end. Like that's bit me a lot of times. So
Sure.
so just always plan ahead. Um, just if you can do something early, just get it done early, and yeah, just just give yourself time. Just don't wait for the last moment, I'd say.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What drives you to own the label?
I mean, kind of, and I don't even know if it's like maybe some other people have like deeper motivation. Like it's not just fun, but it's kind of like it's just I did it and I'm doing it and I'm good at it, so I might as well just keep uh going pretty much, and it makes and it makes me pretty happy, and it definitely makes other people happy, and artists, there's been artists that have made a good amount of money
Hmm.
from it, and it's just kind of like a good thing, and as long as it's not affecting anything else, it seems like something that doesn't make sense to kind of throw away, and something I've learned. This is something I learned pretty early on. Is just consistency. That just um that just helps. Just like going, and if you keep doing it, and you're just consistent about it, then catch on, and that's just sort of something I just feel inclined to do.
Sure. Yeah. Um, where where do you want your success with your label to be in 5 to 10 years?
Uh, yeah, I don't really I don't really know. Like I'm not like hitching like my whole my entire wagon on
Yeah.
this label in particular.
Hmm.
Like if I go on to something else, I'll go on to something else. But if this evolves to something completely different, if it's not even vaporwave anymore, that might happen. Uh, so I'm not 100% sure where I would want it, because because times the landscape changes,
Yeah. 100%.
because there's always a chance. I mean now, just earnestly, I think compared to even 2018, yeah, I think like vaporwave is actually like less popular than it was in 2018, you know. So just kind of keeping that in mind, you
Sure.
know, I just gotta realize, anything can happen. I mean, it can come back, and then I'll have this already kind of in place, or it can not come back, and I'll just have to kind of move on to something else. So I just want to kind of just in general with everything I do, well, personally, it's just I kind of want to just be able to, you know, just go on and support myself, stuff like that,
It's like ride the
and yeah,
waves.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
And I feel like you've already done yourself a service for not making exclusively vaporwave on your label. You have already branched out into a bunch of other subgenres. Like you've released a bunch of like jungle and D&B stuff. You've released, ambient, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not like locked into that one genre.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's just it's genuinely like because there's just not as much of it, you know. Like if you even if you look on, you know, because a lot of some of the music that I release, you know, it's just like it's people like I find, you know, just on like the recent Bandcamp page,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it just seems like you know the landscape's a little bit different, you know, like there's not a lot of people just making, you know, just standard, you know, classic, you know, stereotypical vaporwave anymore. It's just more like into, you know, subgenres, you know, like there's, you know, like you were saying, you know, there's like breakcore and, you know, and you know, signal wave seems to be doing pretty good right now, and you know, slush wave seems to be doing pretty good right now. And those are like types of vaporwave, but
Right.
it's just it's kind of like the you know, sort of just like the standard version of vaporwave that's just it's a little less, you know, it's a little less popular. So you just have to so I just have to, you know, make sure I don't, you know, pigeonhole myself too much.
Sure. Um, Transitioning back into your specific music, what are the your goals and expectations for yourself for the next few years?
Uh oh, kind of like what I was saying, just with the labels, just kind of just you know ride the waves, just figure out some ways to you know support myself. You know,
Hmm.
like you know the band I'm with, you know Soul Guides, like you know that you know we'll see how that goes. You know that just started you know a few months ago, so you know if that goes somewhere, and you know if I find another band at the school that I'm with,
Hmm.
you know, that'd be nice. So, you know, I just want to, yeah, I just want like I know that it won't be easy, you know. You know, the music industry is not an easy industry to get into, but you know, I'm just trying to, yeah, really, I'm just trying to, you know, do my best and you know, just see what works, and you know, certain things have worked. You know, I think, you know, out of anything so far, you know, my label has worked the best in terms of you know making money and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it would. I think the most ideal would be if I could just make my own music, and that would just pay the bills and anything like that. That'd be pretty nice. But you know, if I have to be like a you know a session musician, have to be in a band, or you know keep running a label on the side or something like that,
Hmm.
you know it is what it is. You know that kind of thing.
Sure. um Over the last, you know I guess 8 years at this point, because I think you put your first Grant album on Bandcamp out in like 2016, like mid to late 2016.
Yeah, or technically that was well that's like the time I put it up on SoundCloud. Like I went back to like a Wayback Machine or whatever
Hmm.
because like I deleted all that stuff like a little while ago from the page, but you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, that's when I put it out on yeah, on SoundCloud, but yeah, continue.
You've released over 20 full length albums. They're all like 40 to 70 minutes long. How has your continued like progression and success challenged your creative ability and experimentation with new sounds?
How's it like challenged it in terms of like the amount
Well,
or like
between the amount and also just your ability to change your sound enough to not have the same sounding albums, because that's a lot of music in a relatively short amount of time. And like I said earlier, all of your albums have a pretty distinct sound to them. Like none of them really sound the same.
yeah, I mean let me think. I would think I think when I go about making an album or something, like I'm just sort of like I'm making like I'm usually inspired by like an album or something or like a sort of sound.
Mhm.
And sometimes if I find like a new sound, uh, I'll just kind of want to make music that sort of sounds like if I look back on my like I'm gonna just try to look back on my albums and just think like what I was kind of like listening to at the time. Like I know with one that comes to mind the most I think is like with Space Dance
Mhm.
is I like I usually listen to like I was saying like I usually listen to sorry, excuse me.
You're good. Bless you.
Um a lot of progressive rock from the 70s and stuff like that. But, with the Space Dance, I discovered this album, what was it? One second, let me find it. These are 1981. I think this prog album that came out in like 1981. Let me find it real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, this album Fire in the Sky by Quasar that came out in 1982. I just fell in love with it for some reason. Like I just liked how because it was really like lo-fi, but like also it sounded really lush because it's from the 80s and stuff like that. So I incorporated a lot of those sounds and it's a very spacey album.
Mhm.
Like it's called Fire in the Sky. There's like a lot of space like the track list is Fanfare, Seeing Stars, Mission 14, UFO, Flying Fire in the Sky Moon. So there's a lot of space imagery and stuff like that in that
Mhm.
album. So it's kind of like if I find a certain sound that's kind of distinct, I sort of go with that. And like with Nyx, I was listening to what was I listening to? I was listening to some album that was on Hotline Miami. One second, let me think. Like the Hotline Miami soundtrack. One
Side
sec.
note, fucking banger soundtrack, by the way. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, excellent soundtrack. Yeah. I was listening to Son of Ra when I was making Nyx back in 2018.
Hmm.
So that's like where a lot of that came from. When I was making Vayu, I think I was listening to a lot of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So there's like a lot of Emerson, Lake and Palmer sort of stuff in there. Um, let's see what else. And other and sometimes software can kind of change how I go about things.
Sure.
Like yeah, the original fashion album I did,
Hmm.
I made that using my old software, but then I got Vocaloid, so I made a second version of fashion using Vocaloid.
Hmm.
It wasn't super good. So because of that I made Wrath, which was, I put in a lot more time for the Vocaloid and stuff like that. And that developed how that developed. So, sometimes, software that can kind of, change how you think about things
Hmm.
and initially I remember with Focus, that was like the first time when I was using, you know, a computer for, so I had like a library of a bunch of different sounds I didn't have access to before.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, you find an idea and you can kind of try to see how much you can expand it, and if you can't expand it anymore, there's your album until you can, discover something else, I think.
You're really good at answering my questions before I ask them. I was also going to ask how, like, what your process is for making a song or an album, and you just
Oh,
completely blew that out. That was awesome.
thanks.
Yeah. Is there any album that you put a lot of effort into, but personally felt like it fell short or didn't meet your expectations?
Uh, well, I think fashion was kind of like a culprit of that. Like I went
Yeah.
really back and forth with that one a few times because again, I put it out and it was a good album, you know. But then, I got Vocaloid and I, spent a good amount of money on it, so I felt pretty compelled
Hmm.
to make it into that. But the Vocaloid was pretty it was kind of dodgy, like it just didn't sound very good.
Yeah,
So I went back on that. But honestly, those songs that because basically with those songs that I feel like they weren't quite, you know, done. I still have those in the vault. And I'm still going to release them later, but I'm probably gonna just like put like actual vocals on them and stuff like that.
right,
So they'll come up with in some form or another. But I think like with fashion, it was just kind of like I didn't really know exactly what I was going with because I just felt like Vocaloid in general was kind of a very different kind of beast compared to
for sure.
the other because like with the other vocal synthesizer I was using, it was a lot more like, you know, a synthesizer pretty much, so it just kind of made sense. And it was just kind of easier for me to work with it and stuff like that. But Vocaloids is a lot more like vocals, and there's a lot about vocals that I didn't really know how to, you know, I didn't really know how to mix them, and I didn't really know how to implement them and make them sound real and things like that. So, I think that wait, sorry, I'm blanking. What was the original question? Sorry.
You're good, man. I asked, is there any album that you felt like fell short of your
Ah,
expectations?
so yeah, so I think that was that one.
Yeah,
And and I think in general, I do kind of I kind of wish that my music might have got could get a bit more ears on it, but
sure.
I'm still working on that. And I think there's definitely things that I can do to try to make that happen. And now that I have some more connections and things like that, for the next one, I'm gonna try to see what I can do to market it a bit better and
Hmm.
stuff like that. Uh, but yeah, and I have some ideas about like what's coming next. Actually, like I might as well say it now. Like I'm thinking of even like updating my name a little bit
Hmm.
from Vayu because Vayu's actually kind of it's a little bit taken, right? Like there's a lot of times where like some other some other Vayu's music kind of like pops up on my Spotify or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking of actually like changing it to like Saint Vayu actually.
Oh, okay.
So I think that might be because that's it isn't taken. And I just thought that might be kind of cool, and I think it kind of fits in with like like King Crimson. It's sort of
Yeah, for sure.
same amount of syllables. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that actually. So that's just something I'm thinking about. So I'm just saying that now, I guess. But yeah, yeah.
What do you think are your strongest aspects in your music creation?
Uh, I think I think I pride myself in kind of like the compositional sort of aspects of it.
Agreed.
Uh, I think yeah, I think that's like where I feel pretty strong because like I know that I put a lot of time into you know like specific things. So when it comes to not in all aspects, but just when it comes to like composition, like with how the drums are,
Hmm.
and how like the fills like correspond with like the solos, stuff like that. I would think that I'm kind of strong in that aspect. Like I put in some extra effort in that. I would think.
I would 100% agree that that
Yeah.
comes out in spades whenever I listen to your music. I feel like it is very well organized and put together and very cohesive with the rest of the tracks.
Hey,
On the other side of that, what aspects do you struggle with?
I'm really not that good at mixing and mastering. That's something that's really tough for me to kind of get down. Like, when I'm done with like composing a song, I think like sometimes I can listen to them like, okay, yeah, I'm done. Like this
Hmm.
sounds good. But like with mixing, like I can do something and then like at the end I'm like, oh, this is okay. and then like the next day I listen to it, it's like, oh, this is terrible. Like it's just hard to know like exactly what I'm doing with that.
Sure.
So that aspect I usually kind of dread it, you know, like I feel happy when I'm done like making all the music and like composing it,
Hmm.
but then I'm like, okay, well now I have to mix it, and it's like, oh. But you know, it's also a bit fun, you know, because you know that's the point where I can put in some effects and things like that,
Hmm.
and it might not sound like it might not sound nice, but it can sound pretty fun, be able to put some like echoes and stuff like that. Because otherwise, it would like crash if I compose stuff and like put all the effects on at the same time. So it's kind of cool to be able to see some of the ideas and mixing that like I
Hmm.
have. Like 'cause when I'm making a song, sometimes I have some ideas about like what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna fade out this, I'm gonna fade out this, I'm gonna fade out this. So I can't wait to see how that pans out. But just the process in general is just it's kind of tough for me.
Sure, that's understandable. If I ever got into music creation, I would not ever touch mixing and mastering. I would 100% send that to someone else.
Yeah.
um, all right, we got a couple more. As someone who is totally unfamiliar with progressive music like chiptune, which I know is more on some of your other aliases, and then Vocaloid, I got some bad whiplash first time listening to your music, and I got introduced with Wrath. That was the first album. It
Hmm.
was fucking crazy to listen to, and I did not know how to process it. How would you recommend someone like me get introduced and accustomed to your style of music?
Um, I mean, I would think that huh, accustomed to it. Because I would think that if I mean I haven't tested it, and if I maybe got it in front of some more people's eyes, like I would have kind of like a better sort of way to answer that, because like there's been people who've listened to it like in my real life, and there was actually
Hmm.
one person who reviewed Wrath in their blog and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and I thought that was I felt pretty honored. Like I was put in like their top 50 prog albums of 2021. Like I'm pulling it up now. I think I was like near the middle or something. Let me
Yeah,
see.
I actually saw that whenever I was first listening to the album, and I was like, "What the fuck? That's cool."
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, 37. So 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 it seems like people who like, progressive rock, they can kind of see what's going on,
Right.
but like, the vocals might be like a little bit weird, so it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of strange, but I can sort of see what's going on.
Hmm.
And I would sort of and maybe like on the inverse, if someone's like really into Vocaloid music or something, but like they don't really know about like 70s progressive rock, they might also feel like, it's kind of weird, like the structure's weird, but I like Vocaloid music. But I would think like if you knew like neither, maybe that would be like it's kind of like, what is this, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean that was my
So
exact reaction. Is like, what am I listening to? I loved it. Like it was great, but
yeah,
it felt weird to listen to.
yeah. So so I think that's the reason why why I'm thinking of kind of like yeah, probably like if I'm going to use like synthesized vocals
Hmm.
anymore, like it'd probably be like a very minor degree, because I think that just having actual vocals on something kind of, it helps people like connect to it a bit,
Yeah.
you know? So it's sort of like, because it's kind of like there's a person there, and they're singing on it, so it's just kind of like it can help you sort of make that connection, so that that's why I think I'm gonna try to add some more vocals on my stuff, even though I'm not like an amazing singer or anything, but hopefully I can do a good enough job, to serve the music, and I'm pretty I feel pretty all right with what I'm doing so far with vocals, and I can still work on them, but I think that could help people sort of get into it. So I'm thinking if um so I'll answer in two ways. So I'm
Okay.
hoping for my next project, if I have like vocals on it and stuff like that,
Hmm.
people might be able to connect to that one, and then from there, maybe they can connect to some of the other ones.
Okay.
But for now, I would say, I think some of my albums are probably easier to get into than others. I think, I think the Space Dance is probably a good,
I was just getting ready to
uh,
say that.
yeah, a good bet. Like I've always liked this one. Like it might be my favorite album I've made,
Hmm.
genuinely. Uh, and I think that might be a pretty good one to get into. So, I guess for now I'd say that, but I'm thinking for my next one, I'll try to I'll try to have some more accessible songs, maybe release a single or two, and hopefully people can kind of get into it a bit easier, because like I know it's a little bit esoteric how my discography is now.
Sure. Um, and then just I I'm gonna say just one more thing, but it's a whole list of things just to kind of wrap things up. I wanted to briefly talk about some of the standouts in my favorite albums while listening to your catalog, and just whatever thoughts and opinions or fun facts while I'm going through it. Share whatever.
Uh,
Um, which, by the way, listening to the whole thing, that was wild. Like there's so much music there. It's crazy, man. Um, Wrath. That was my introduction to your music and what led me down the whole rabbit hole. The remaster that was released last year was fantastic. I think it excelled on every part of the album. It was amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, I definitely did like that one. Yeah, a lot of those songs I put in a lot of effort to. I think especially Nature's Wilting Caress. I feel like I've been working on that one for a pretty long time, actually. So yeah, I like that. Yeah, I definitely do like this one. So yeah.
Sure. Space Dance, we just kind of went over that one, but I go back and forth on which one I like between Space Dance and Wrath. Um, all four of the main tracks are they all work together so well. Like the cohesion is just there. Um, Milk and Honey is probably my favorite song, like of yours. Period. And such a good album.
Thanks.
Window, that was hella underrated. It's really long. It's like 80 minutes or something like that, but it does not feel like it's 80 minutes. It goes by really quick and it keeps the engagement the whole time. Um
Yeah, yeah, I think definitely yeah, I think Window, the song Window, I think that was the first song I've made just under any alias that was like over 20 minutes, I think.
yeah, what was it? Like I think it's like 22 minutes long.
Yeah.
Venture, another hidden gem. I think that was one that's exclusive to your members. Um
Yeah.
but it was really good. Venture, the title track, also stood out. It was another long one, but it all of the parts to it just kind of meshed together really well. I liked Venture a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of I don't know. With that one I feel like I made that one really quickly for some reason. I think I was just like a very busy part, so I just kind of so that one it just doesn't really like register or something. But I do like that one. That one's yeah.
Which that's fair. You put out a whole bunch of stuff in 2018, and that was one of
Yeah.
them. So that makes sense. A Billion Worlds by Second Alias. Was that one originally Second Alias?
That one was I think that one was actually
Ballroom for Ghosts.
originally a ballroom for ghosts,
Okay,
but I recognize that I didn't want to have too many aliases,
sure.
so I think it just kind of made sense to make all my stuff that I made using primarily samples into second alias. I think it just made more sense, and I think it still is similar enough to my other second alias stuff, and I think just and what I did just to kind of differentiate this one still is like I just I put I put everything in lowercase as opposed to putting everything in capitals.
Hmm.
So, but yeah,
Uh,
I'm a big fan of that one too, actually.
yeah, I listened to it with my AirPods in and had the spatial sound turned on, and
Oh, cool.
it fucked with my brain. There's like because it rotates between your left and your right really quick in a couple songs.
Yeah,
It was awesome.
yeah. That's kind of just like it's like a trick I use because sometimes I can't perfectly get uh like the BPM matched on. So if like I
Hmm.
have it like going back and forth, even if it's not perfect, it can still like work with like other samples and stuff like that.
Yeah. Threshold was amazing. I'm pretty sure I liked every single song on it. Like there were no skips. It was like a video game soundtrack. It Memories, which is towards the later end of the track list, was amazing off of it. That was a really cool album, and I think you made that on Oxy, right?
Yep. Yeah, so all the fantastic daydream stuff was made on Oxy with Who Are You Just Lift that was like half and half Oxy and Logic,
Hmm.
but yeah, stuff with that fantastic daydream I use Oxy for that.
My Darling Life, which I think is a Grant album,
Yeah.
that was really like trance inducing. Like it kind of had like a house feel to it. It I don't know, it was just really relaxing. And especially
No,
for
thanks.
being I think that was one of your first ones. Could be wrong on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely during one of the earlier ones. I think it was like the second collection of the second album I put together. Like with the stuff before, like Forever and Noah, those are like collections of
Hmm.
signals. Or, I don't know why that's word's so hard for me to say right now. But I think Neon Boys was the first album that I put out
Hmm.
like together, and I think this one was like the second one, and then I think it was Fiji Jam or Fuji Jam, and then 2002, and then Axology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds right. And then speaking of Fuji Jam, that was also that was really good. It was kind of reminiscent of like what Wrath does for me. And
Hmm.
Faint is probably in my top 5 favorite songs. I clicked with that so hard, and I don't know why.
Hmm. Cool, cool.
And then for you, top 3 of your favorite albums.
Favorite albums. Okay, well, the Space Dance is definitely there.
Hmm.
Um, I think that I think Sunrise and the Lunettes there too. I like that one a lot. Um, I feel pretty proud of it, and that was actually in the cover. That was actually that's the artist that does a lot of the stuff for my label with Machine Cat.
Oh, I didn't
Uh,
know that. That's awesome.
yeah, she did this cover too, and she did Vayu too. Yeah, she's awesome. She's helped me with so much stuff. So yeah, Machine Cat W. Um, but yeah, Sunrise and Lunette, that's probably up there.
Okay.
I think. I feel like maybe if I sat on this version of Fashion, that might be there, but like I haven't sat with it enough.
Uh
But I'd say for now, it's kind of hard. Hold
huh.
up.
I will also say the new version of Fashion is creeping up there for me.
Yeah, I like I kind of like how I like the songs that the new songs I put on there. I've always wanted to release them, but I just haven't had like tracks 2 and 3 I've just been sitting on for a while, so I was happy I was able to finally find a place to release them.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I'd say Sunrise and Lunette, that's up there.
Yep.
Space Dance is up there.
Okay.
Wrath is up there, I think. And I think A Billion Worlds is up there. And if I thought about it, I'd probably be able to rank them. But I think that would probably be like the top four, I would think.
Okay. I fantastic.
And also,
Um,
I think Her Majesty is actually pretty pretty good too. Sometimes I kind of forget about that one because the cover's kind of similar to the Space Dance,
mhm.
but I think it's actually I think it's pretty cool. And there's two songs on there that are kind of like normal song length. So I'm kind of happy I was able to get some songs that are like not a million minutes long.
That's
But
okay.
yeah,
I think that's also your strong suit. I think you really thrive in that long song format.
yeah.
Um, I think that's it for me. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Uh, I don't think so. But I would say, thank you for, listening to all my music and, your support and stuff like that. I mean, that helps, let me know I'm doing something right. And, I'm still working on new stuff. And yeah,
Awesome. I'm excited to hear it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're busy more often than not, so I appreciate you having this interview with me.
no problem, man.
Right. I will talk to you later. Have a good one.
All right, have a good one.